Hello beautiful people, my name is Vendi and today I'm bringing you my first ever Tagapalooza. This is basically going to be a series on this channel that I'm going to continue where I do several tags in one go because I have a pretty big backlist and I want to get them all to you because I'm very grateful to all my friends who've tagged me to do these videos and I just think they're really interesting. This first one is also brought to you by the fact that I just had my spring break, but no part of it felt like an actual break. So thanks to many of my professors, who I like as people, but right now I'm not feeling very kindly towards, since they don't seem to understand the concept of the word break, which is not a difficult word in the English language, but I digress. It is in part due to these lovely people that I need to do a really low risk, low energy type of video that I can also do while multitasking, and also perhaps performing a little bit of self-care. So next time you see me, I'm gonna have a face mask on and I'm going to be folding my laundry because that's where we're at this point in my life. I'm bringing 3 tags to you guys today. The first of which is the binge reading book tag that was created by Avery from Avery Loves Books. I was also tagged by her. The second is the Netflix book tag and I was tagged by Hannah from Snow White Reader. The original tag came from the channel A Darker Shade of Whitney. Now I chose these 2 tags because my restful spring break was far from restful, and while I wished that all I could do was binge Netflix, I ended up speed writing several essays, which do not recommend. And the third tag I chose, the not TBR tag, I was also tagged by Avery, and the original is by the channel Bookish Hamster. I chose because my Catholic heart knows that it is Lent. It is time for giving things up and abstaining, and not TBR sounds kind of like abstaining. I don't know. The connection makes sense to me. We're gonna roll with it. I'm gonna have all of the creators and the people who tagged me linked in the description box below, along with the tag questions so you can follow along if you want to. And now I'm going to put a face mask on and get back to you and start answering the questions. Well, this is certainly a look. All right, we are starting off with the binge reading book tag. Question number 1 is a series that I'm desperate to binge. The answer I have to give for this is the Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner, or The Queen's Thief. I'm never really certain which it is. I know the first book is called The Thief. It follows a boy named Jen who basically brags in a tavern that he could steal anything. He ends up stealing the seal of a king and gets caught and thrown in prison. And his only chance to get out of the prison is to accompany some people on a mission to steal an item out of a myth. And the story really goes from there. I really like this series so far. I've only read the first because Jen is just such a sassy, wonderful character and the plot is really strong. The pacing is a little fast, which makes me think it would actually be pretty perfect to binge. But the real reason I want to finish this series is because my favorite author of all time, Susan Dennard, says that the 3rd book in the series, The King of Atolia, is the best plotted book that she's ever read, and her plotting is phenomenal, so I can't imagine what that book's gonna look like. Which brings me pretty well to question number 2. What is a book that I think everyone should stop what they're doing right now and read? The answer to that, of course, is Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. If you're a sucker for high fantasy, elemental magic, friendship between women, high stakes, moral grayness, and the chosen one trope but turned on its head, you're gonna like the series, and I like all of those things, and if you like me, you'd at least give it a try, no? Question number 3 is which author's books would you most like to binge read? So read the entire written works of one author. And for this, I actually have to say Kristen Cashore. She wrote Jane Unlimited, which is a book that I really like. I think I read it last year or the year before. It was a big favorite. And before I even knew about the bookish internet, a book series of hers that I really adored was the GRACELING series. It was kind of like Truth Witch in the high fantasy, funny types of magic thing, but also very much Kristen Cashore's. Her writing style is just so beautiful. It's lyrical. She writes in a very lyrical way, and I think that sort of reading that back to back would ruin all other writing for me, but I still kind of would want to do it. Question number 4 is what is the latest book that you read in one sitting that you binged from start to finish? And I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've had the time to actually sit down and read a book cover to cover, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say that my audio reread / listen to Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare was the latest one. It wasn't exactly in one go, but I did read it all within the day. And speaking of Cassandra Clare, the next question is what character or characters would you like to binge watch a TV show with? And for that I have to say Clary Frey and Simon Lewis from the Moral Instrument series. I read a lot of fantasy and it's not often that, you get fantasy that also has things like television shows in it. And Clary and Simon are both really into geek culture and they watch a lot of anime, and anime is my favorite show type of thing to binge. So yeah, I think I'd like to, sit down and rewatch or on High School Host Club with the two of them. It'd be really fun. Question number 6 is, what's the latest that you've ever stayed up to finish a book, and which book was it? I mean, I've pulled a lot of reading all-nighters, especially in my youth, but the series that I remember doing so like the most often was the entire Harry Potter series by obviously J.K. Rowling. Whether it was the first read or a reread, I would always, if I ended up reading into the night, just spend the entire evening with a little flashlight in my bedroom, reading the entire thing until I finished it, and then picking up the next one if I wasn't quite so tired. I have a lot of fond memories like trying to hide my like binge reading from my parents in my youth. I'm sure they knew what I was doing, but they just kind of let me get away with it, but they also let me keep that sort of like Mission Impossible feel, and I really appreciate that. So if you're watching, Mom and Dad, love you. And finally, question number 7, what is a series that's worth binging? Now, I know you guys probably all have ideas of what I'm gonna say, but I think I'm gonna surprise you by saying the Winners Trilogy by Marie Rutkowski. Hear me out. 1, it's a fantasy, so you would think like, oh, the world building's gonna be a little tough to get into, it's gonna be slow reading, but it's not, because it's a kind of like, I guess if there's high fantasy, there can also be low fantasy, but not in the sense that it's like urban fantasy. I mean, it's still a world that isn't ours, and there are some fantastical-ish elements to it, but there's no like dragons and magical lore. So it's very, very easy to get into. It's like a good gateway drug if you're trying to just get into fantasy, but you haven't really started yet. And additionally, the romance, which is a pretty strong element, is addicting as hell. You just get sucked right into it and you want to turn the pages and find out what happens. But in addition to the romance, you also want to find out how like the political revolution that's going on is going to go, because it's just so well plotted. Great book, excellent series to binge read, would recommend it. And the last bit of all these tags obviously is to tag people to do them. I'm not going to do that in this video. If you're watching and you like the sound of any of them, consider yourself tagged to do any and all of them. That's one down. Next is the Netflix book tag. Question number 1 is recently watched, and it's asking, what is the book that you've most recently finished? Right now the answer to that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a reread for me in preparation for reading The Wicked King finally. Question number 2 is top picks. What is a book recommended to me based on previous reads? The one that comes to mind most vividly right now is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, because I recently read and loved the Six of Crows duology, and I have a historic love of the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. Question number 3 is recently added. What is the most recent book that I bought? And if you asked me 2 days ago, it would have been Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. But now it is Sisters of the Winter Wood, I believe it's called. I forget who that's by. I will have the cover obviously shown to you right now so you can read it off of there. Question number 4 is popular on Netflix. Pick a book that everybody knows about. And I'm going to be a little cheeky and mention one that also has a show, but the show's not on Netflix, and that would be the Song of Ice and Fire series. Everyone knows about it and everyone's got an opinion about it, so I think it's perfect for this question. Question number 5 is comedies. Pick a funny book, and for this I have to say the exact opposite of Okay and its sequel, A Girl Called Shameless by Laura Steven. The protagonist of these books is a girl that's been involved in a sex scandal with a politician's son, and it kind of blows up and everyone's slut-shaming her. So you would think that the book would be like really deep and dark and sad, but she's also an aspiring comedian, so her prose is just hilarious. And I think the humor really just helps balance out the really tough subject matter that's going on and makes for a very interesting read. Question number 6 is drama. Pick a dramatic character, and I have to say Jen from the Queen's Thief series. I just finished reading a book in which he was a main character recently, and he is such a drama queen. You know, in that John Mulaney bit where he's like, you want me to do what? I feel like that's Jen for everything in his entire life. Question number 7 is animated. Pick a book with a cartoon on the cover. Now, I'm not really sure that I have one. Okay, yeah, looking at my bookshelves now, I'm gonna say Reflection, which is the novelization of a retelling of how the Disney movie Mulan could have gone, and that has literal Mulan on the cover, which is an animated film. I guess that counts. Question number 8 is Watch It Again. What is a series that you'd like to reread? And for me, it's always going to be Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. You guys, you know. I'm going to be hosting a read-along for it in the month of May because it's my birthday that month and I want to. So if that's a thing you're also interested in, stick around. Question number 9 is documentaries. What is a nonfiction book that you would recommend to everyone? And in honor of International Women's Day yesterday, I have no choice but to say Milk by my lovely friend Emma Rosen, who I'll have linked in the description box below. Milk is part memoir, part like expose on the realities of breastfeeding. And while that seems like it might be a purely women's issue, it's really not. It's a feminist thing, which means it's an everyone thing. When women benefit, so does the rest of the world, and I think everyone ought to read Milk and get a little more informed about, you know, child rearing and human biology. I feel like education is never something you can have too much of. And I think Milk is a very good educational tool. Well done, Emma. Question number 10 is action adventure. Pick an action-packed book. And for this, I have to say the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown background, but especially Golden Sun, which is the middle book. I love that series because something is happening non-stop. It makes sci-fi very accessible because instead of, worrying about the science, it's more heavily balanced to the pew-pew laser life, which I'm a huge fan of. Not that heavy science fiction is bad. I'm sure that a lot of times it's really good, but sometimes it's not for me. I like one genre to be especially heavy, and it's my fantasy. But to each their own. And finally, question 11, new release. Pick a book that just came out that you are super excited to get to. And for this, I have to say The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Samantha's the author of The Bone Season, which is a series that's ongoing that I really, really enjoy about clairvoyance in London. Though they're no longer just in London, they're kind of all over the world. And I just love her writing style. So when she said she was coming out with an 800-page tome that is high fantasy and all about dragons, and it's centering a women-loving, women main relationship, I can't wait to read it. And last but certainly not least, we have the not TBR tag. Question number 1 is the abandoned pile. What is a book genre that you are most likely to leave off of your TBR? For me, this has to be like young adult and new adult contemporary, especially when it's like romance heavy and fluffy. I don't know, I like higher stakes to my books a little bit. Not saying that romance can't be a very high stake, it's just not something that particularly compels me. Reading is escapism for me, and reading a contemporary rarely feels like an escapist thing, so Question number 2 is TBD, to be denied. What is a book that comes to mind as one you'll never read? Oh, it's so easy. It's Akathas, or A Court of Frost and Sunlight by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know. It's the little novella that went at the price of like a regular novel that was all about like smut and Christmas shopping. I don't know. I'm never gonna read it. I was disappointed by ACOWAR, so I'm probably not gonna read the continuation of that series either. We got an ending in ACOWAR. I'm gonna be satisfied with that ending and leave it as is. And I'm definitely not gonna pay $20-something to read about Christmas smut. Question number 3 is Nevermore. Is there an author who you don't want to give a chance or a second chance? And for me, that's another very easy one. I'm definitely going to say A.J. Finn, which is the pen name of, I think, what's his name? Yeah, Dan Mallory. He's the guy that wrote A Woman in the Window. And I think he is like a narcissistic sociopath. The way he sort of came into his job was by lying about having cancer, his mom having cancer, his mom dying of cancer, his little brother dying of cancer, and just a whole variety of other things. There was like a New Yorker article a little while back that was like an expose on this absolute charlatan that I'll have linked in the description box below. But yeah, he's never getting any of my money. He's never getting any of my support. I might read it if he dies, and then none of my money will go to him, and that might seem a little harsh, but like I have no sympathy for somebody who can do that. I don't believe that there's like a harsh divide and that people can be either fully good or fully bad, but I feel like if it were possible, he'd be closer to that second camp for sure. And the final question is number 4, TBR pile. Pick 5 books from your TBR pile that you know you'll never get to, but you still say that you will. And here's the thing, that doesn't exist for me. I'm assuming we're talking about the physical TBR that I have over there. You don't know what that is. It's basically I have a literal pile of books over there that are my TBR books, and I'm excited for every single one. I don't believe in having or saying that you're going to read something that you don't want to. I definitely understand changing your mind, but I'm lucky enough that I haven't changed my mind on any of the books that I have bought and paid for and sitting ready and waiting for me to enjoy. If we're talking my Goodreads TBR, I haven't looked through that in a while, so I'm sure that there's some there, but I'm also lazy and I would rather finish folding this and get this face mask off my face, so Wow, I actually feel a lot better having accomplished this and having my face be all smooth and soft. Really nice to be able to have like full mobility again. But anyway, that is it for my first ever Tagapalooza and the 3 tags that I've been talking about all video. I'm not going to repeat their names. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this sort of tag mashup style of doing things and you don't mind a more chatty video where I'm doing other stuff at the same time, please let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. And if you like me in general, maybe consider subscribing to this channel. There's going to be more content like this for sure because I personally like the tag bundle thing very much. Anyway, that's it for me today. I have to edit and upload this, and I also have more clothes to fold and just other various things to do. So I'm gonna go. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next Saturday. Goodbye.